All right, we're talking to Jody Campiche. She's an economist at Oklahoma State University. And Jody, you just published a report in the Kansas City Federal Reserve Bank's Main Street Economist with Brian Brigham on impact of ACRE payments for just the overall farm economy and also farmland values. How are you seeing ACRE impact farmland values right now?
I would say at this point, it's kind of hard to speculate on what's going to happen with farmland values just because of how the ACRE sign-up for 2009 occurred in the U.S. Across the different states, there was different sign-up rates. Particularly Oklahoma had a high sign-up rate for fairly high compared to everybody else for 2009. But across the other states, it wasn't all that high, so it's kind of hard to tell at this point because ACRE for some states will have a significant payment for 2009, but that doesn't necessarily mean there's a high payment for the following years, 2010 through 2012. But producers who got in the ACRE program in 2009 have to stay in it for the rest of the Farm Bill, and they have a 20% cut in their direct payments. So the issue is, any possibility of ACRE increasing farmland values could be partially offset by that loss in direct payments, which seems to be an issue for many landowners who, when they had tenants coming to them and thinking about getting to the ACRE program.
Now, if we're looking at the June 1 sign-up date, are you expecting sign-ups to go up or down this year? And maybe Oklahoma's a bit of an anomaly because they were the highest in the country on ACRE sign-up. But are we looking at more or fewer sign-ups? And when's it going to make sense for somebody to sign up for ACRE this year?
I don't anticipate sign-ups increasing a tremendous amount this year. It was very difficult to get producers signed up last year, and particularly wheat producers, and not just Oklahoma, but any of the states had more information ahead of time because the sign-up deadline was pushed back to August 14th last year. But this year it'll go back to June 1st. So producers will be having even less information to make this decision on. And as of right now, part of the problem is, what we need to know to determine if we have a potential for an ACRE payment is we need the state yield, which isn't out yet for any crops. We need the 2010-2011 marketing year average price. Farmers would also need to have somewhat of an idea of what's going to happen on their own farms and how their own yields are because they have to meet both the state and farm sugar. So at this point in time, it's kind of, we can just look at scenarios. Well, if price is high and yield is low, you might get this payment. Or if, yields are decent but prices are high, you're probably not going to get a payment. So right now, I would say it's kind of hard to determine if producers should get into ACRE for 2010 or not. It's just, it was such an advantage, especially for wheat producers last year, to have that deadline pushed back to August 14th.
So if you're a producer out there, what do you need to be looking at right now to figure out if you want to sign up for it, or do you just ignore it?
Well, if you have any kind of idea of what your state yield is going to be for whatever crop you're considering putting into ACRE, that's a good thing to start with. Last year for Oklahoma wheat, producers knew, back in April that the wheat yields just weren't going to be that great. And then they also knew on their own farms what the yields, an estimate of what their yields were going to be. So, that's the best thing to start with right now. And the problem with knowing what the price is going to be, sure, we can look at estimates, but we don't even have the 2009-2010 price final yet. So I guess the main thing is producers just kind of have to decide, it's a risky decision either way, but are they willing to give up that 20% in direct payments for the possibility of getting a potential ACRE payment in 2010? But again, it's hard to make that decision when you don't have much information ahead of time.
Now let's go back to the farmland values and how that may be impacted there. Are you looking at this more from a macro level? Is it because of the sign-up? Is it going to impact things on a macro level or a whole state, or is it going to be more on a field-by-field, farm-by-farm basis?
I would say it would probably be more on a either farm-by-farm or state basis, just because of how the payments are set up. I don't necessarily know that it'll impact farmland values on a national basis because, as we know, some states can get an acre payment while others don't get an acre payment. Even, for instance, last year with Kansas and Oklahoma wheat is getting a significant payment, but producers who also had significant losses right across the border in Kansas aren't getting a payment just because, the state wheat yield in Kansas was better than Oklahoma. So I would say, it may impact farmland values, but it's very hard to say at this point because, we may have a potential for an acre payment, but we also have to consider that if that farm has signed up an acre, whoever's, farming that particular piece of land also has to take a 20% cut in direct payments. So a potential increase in farmland values per acre will be partially offset by that 20% loss in direct payments.
All right, that's Jody Campiche. She's a ag economist at Oklahoma State University. Thank you, Jody.
Thank you.